We are starting a little late, so we're going to get this meeting started and ask, is there sufficient seats here? Okay, I guess not. We were booted out of our usual meeting place because of Public Works Commission meeting going on there. We've been joined by Councilmember Englander and Councilmember Cedillo. And is item number 10 our Director of Planning report? Is there a report today, sir?
Good afternoon. Mike LeGrand, Director of Planning. I'll be brief since you have a full agenda. I'd like to make you aware of a public hearing we're having in our Code Studies unit. This is the hearing officer hearing taking place Thursday, October 15th, 2013. It'll be taking place September 17th, 2013 in City Hall. This is regarding the small lot subdivision process changes we're looking to implement. One of our highest sought-after entitlements is for small lot subdivisions to allow for ownership of single-family homes rather than just condominiums where they have a fee-simple way of owning the property in the dirt beneath the homes, rather than in a traditional condominium-type structure. And so we're making some amendments to that to make it a more streamlined process and to also not require a number of exceptions from the zoning code in order to implement what the ordinance had always intended to have take place. So we're excited to see that move forward, and we'll be bringing it through the legislative process very shortly. A couple other items to report. We've had a number of exciting public hearings making their way through the City Council. We'll be happy to continue to work with you on the mural ordinance as it makes its way through the full council, as well as some of our community plan updates as they make their way onto City Council. That'll conclude my report for today.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. And now we can move to item number 8.
Item number 8, council members, is an appeal filed by Mr. Juan Barrales Amador, Mr. Chavira as his representative. This has to do with a zoning administrator nuisance abatement case as it relates to the operation of El Arroyo Bar in CD9.
Wait, hold on one second.
That was number 7. Number 8 is being continued. Right?
Yeah, we're going to continue that item.
Okay, sorry.
So number 8, we will continue.
Number 7.
Item number 9, there's been a request by the applicant to continue that as well. So we'll continue items 8 and 9, and now we are at number 7.
Yes,
okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, committee members. This is Su Cheng at the City Planning. Welcome to this committee. I appreciate your time for this case. This application is for the condition compliance review of the nuisance abatement determination on El Arroyo Bar located at 7026 South Broadway. Existing bar dates back to 1961, at which time it was also issued the first alcohol license at this location. The bar under its former name, Los Amigos Bar, under the different operator at that time, was determined to be a public nuisance in June 2009. A total of 32 operating conditions were imposed. The operator at the time of original nuisance hearing in 2008 is no longer affiliated with the operation of the bar, and a new operator is in place. The current business owner-operator, Mr. Juan Barrales Amador, took over this business under the name of El Arroyo Bar in June 2009. That is the time the City Council imposed total of 32 operating conditions. The first condition compliance review was conducted on October 25th, 2011, and this subject application is the second condition compliance review. The operator also requested extended hours of operation and pool tables and live entertainment. This request has been denied. The review of the current operation indicates that the property owner and the operator failed to demonstrate their best efforts to mitigate nuisance activities associated with the bar. The nuisance complaints include employees soliciting alcoholic beverages, unpermitted and illegal dance hall use, excessive noise, loitering, prostitution, fighting, public urination, illegal parking, and traffic violations, lewd act, drinking in public drunkenness, vandalism, extortion threats by the gang members. The LAPD investigation indicates that many of the imposed operating conditions are not in compliance. Security guard did not check patrons' age identification. Waitresses do not wear a uniform and name tag, which was required as a part of operating conditions. Noise could be heard at the street intersection outside. Continuously allowing patrons in a dance floor, which was never permitted, and which itself will require a conditional use approval. And also, the operator continuously serving alcohol to obviously intoxicated patrons. Now, this operator has been informed of non-compliance with operating conditions in English and Spanish numerous times by the LAPD. However, this operator has not shown any efforts to improve the situation. In order to mitigate nuisance activities, some of the prior conditions are modified, including the conditions for security guard and operating hours. 2 guards are required during the week, and 3 guards are required on the weekends. That is how LAPD recommends. The operating hours are restricted with 11 p.m. closing during the week and 12 midnight closing on weekends. LAPD wants to close this premise at 11 p.m. daily. The residents complain about excessive noise. The condition is modified to prohibit any amplified music and speakers and dancing at the bar. The next condition compliance review is required within 9 months before the current lease expires in June 2014. That was my estimation that next condition compliance review will be somewhere around March, which will allow about 3 months before the current lease expires. My determination was made a few months ago. Now we are already heading to September. So if this committee feels to make that review period shorten to be 6 months instead of 9 months, I recommend that. Staff recommends the committee to deny the appeal and keep the conditions as modified and recommended, and I'll be available any questions you may have. LAPD officers are here to testify. I believe LAPD investigation had intensive investigation in 2011, 2012 until this Saturday. Condition compliance, non-compliance still continues, as the LAPD officers will give you more detailed information about the investigation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now if we could go to LAPD, Officer Michael Dix and Officer Balzano. Are you here? Welcome.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Officer Michael Dickus. I work Detective Support and Vice Division, Citywide Nuisance Abatement, LAPD. I've been handling nuisance abatement investigations for approximately 10 years. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this location, and then we'll talk about some of the conditions. During the zoning hearing, we as the police department requested revocation of the use at this location. However, we fully support the conditional use permit brought forth by Ms. Chang. I believe that she did use her discretion and met all parties in the middle by not revoking, but issuing a stricter and more modified conditional use to assist in the reduction of criminal activity at this location. I'm currently handling this case for an officer that has been injured on duty. But I initially had this case back in 2005 when it was a previous owner and under the name of Los Amigos, as Ms. Chang had previously stated. The operations of this business have not changed in the 8 years that I've been involved with this case. And Officer Balzano will talk about some of the investigations that have occurred even up until this Saturday where there is a violation. This location is in very close proximity to a residential area, and it does produce a nuisance in this area with traffic and noise, as well as drunken public. Like I had mentioned before, in my opinion, with a violation as early as Saturday, I think that's not only a disrespect to this process and proceeding, but shows utter disregard for the law. I'm going to go and speak on the conditional use permit itself and basically give my opinion as to why that these certain conditions should be in place. I'm only going to go with a top four, in my opinion. Number 8, we had requested the applicant have 3 state licensed security guards at all hours of operation for this business. The reason for is we want 1 security guard to be posted at the entrance of this location to closely monitor all patrons coming in and out, not only for ID checks and monitoring of underage, but for other individuals that might be already intoxicated entering this particular area. We would request that 2nd security guard be posted inside the location near the cashier restaurant area to ensure that only employees of the bar are involved in those transactions, as this location is a predominant, what we call a B-girl bar. And the 3rd security guard would be an individual that would roam inside the bar to ensure that there are no violations of dancing, which they are not permitted to do so, and they can assist with the outside of the location that are adjacent to this business. Number 17 regards to the dance floor. We request that tables and other items be affixed to this floor to prevent the operator, patrons, and other persons from dancing. This has been an issue since 2005 and continues to be so up until this date, as of even this Saturday. Number 19 deals with no amplified music. Ambient music would be suffice. Since there is no dancing, we request that they don't have any kind of amplified music other than whatever the stereo or jukebox would provide. So Ms. Chang said that we had requested the hours from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily. She has suggested to allow the business to stay open till midnight on the weekends, and we are adherents with that. But we strictly believe that it should stay at those hours, given the close proximity of what this location is to the residents. With that, I'll have Officer Balzano introduce himself, and he can talk more on the investigations that have occurred recently on the property.
Good afternoon. My name's Nick Balzano. I am currently assigned to LAPD Newton Division, a Divisional Vice Unit, who is ultimately responsible for the area where El Arroyo Bar is situated. I have approximately 8.5 years with the Los Angeles Police Department, over which 6 have been directly, I've been working for Newton Division, and I've been assigned to the Vice Unit for approximately 2 years now. My partner was the lead investigator, Officer Ronald Sanchez, on this investigation. However, he was unable to make it today, so I will be speaking on his behalf. However, I was his partner throughout this entire investigation and can testify to the same information. I'm going to speak with you based on the last 2.5 years of investigations that have occurred at El Arroyo Bar, and as recently as last weekend when we conducted an inspection at that location. In May 2012, Officer Sanchez was tasked with conducting an undercover operation at El Arroyo Bar to ensure that they were operating within their imposed conditions. He and I both made ourselves familiar with the location and researched prior activity that had occurred throughout the past years. In June of 2012, we conducted an undercover operation where it was clear that the same issues addressed by officers on prior vice tours was still ongoing and present. He observed several violations of their conditions, including employees soliciting alcohol from patrons for profit in violation of condition number 15, and this is based on the conditional use permit dated October 25th, 2011, which was prior to the implementation of the new conditional use permit dated in June of this year. Loud amplified music could also be heard from the exterior of this location in violation of number 20. Dancing and employees encouraging dancing by leading patrons to designated dance floors in violation of condition number 16. And the owner failing to cover up the designated dancing floor and failing to discourage dancing to occur in violation of condition number 16. Over the course of a 4-month investigation, the Newton Vice Unit conducted 4 undercover operations and arrested 2 individuals for soliciting alcoholic beverages from undercover officers. Mr. Barales was personally cited and released at scene for these violations and the above conditional violations. Undercover and upfront investigations have been conducted after citing Mr. Barales for violating these conditions that have been imposed. The owners and operators have continued to violate and have failed to correct these conditions that were brought to their attention. It is obviously that the bar owners have not demonstrated their ability to operate the business in a responsible manner. I'm going to talk about the calls for service in and around that area that was also important. The El Arroyo Bar sits directly on the border of Reporting District 1391 in Newton Division. Within the past year, El Arroyo had 5 calls for service at that specific location, including 1 narcotic call, 2 calls for intoxicated man in a vehicle, 1 assault with a deadly weapon, and 1 battery suspect at that location. Within the reporting district, 1 arrest was made for driving under the influence, and 32 arrests at that location have been made for public drunkenness. This is within reporting district 91, 4 arrests were made for driving under the influence of alcohol, and 11 arrests were made for public drunkenness, which is basically the RD or reporting district directly to the west of that location in close proximity to that El Arroyo Bar as well. My observations and my partner's operations at the bar are not unique. This location is a general nuisance and has been the subject of arrest, as Officer Dickus has indicated, for several years now. During the initial testimony by Officer Sanchez in the zoning hearing, he provided Ms. Chang with 7 citizen declarations from local community members that consider El Arroyo a nuisance and live basically directly next to the bar. They had similar but unique stories on the problem that they encounter on a weekly basis. The local residents complain about drinking in public, public drunkenness, vomiting, public urination, threats of violence, fighting, illegal parking, loitering, and loud music. Basically, these houses and apartments are families with children. The property 6, like I said before, sits directly behind the bar and has a direct impact on their lives, and the children in these areas are exposed to this behavior. On August 25th, 2012, Mr. Morales was cited for 303 PC, employing persons to solicit alcoholic beverages, and a violation of their conditional use permit, including conditions number 16, dancing prohibited, and condition 17, dance floor covered by the tables and chairs. While Mr. Morales was being cited, he indicated that he is aware that dancing is against his conditions and was aware that it is occurring at his bar. So he does actually acknowledge that. Approximately 6 months later, on February 15, 2013, Mr. Morales was issued another citation for violation of conditional use. The citation was issued again by Officer Baruman and Dickus, who are currently assigned to Detective Support Division, and essentially the same violations that I've mentioned before are continuing to happen. The owners and operators of El Arroyo Bar continue to violate these imposed conditions, and it causes an unnecessary drain on us and police resources throughout the department. It's my opinion that the owners and operators of El Arroyo Bar are blatant in disregarding the conditions imposed by the zoning administrator. As recently as last Saturday, I personally conducted an upfront inspection at El Arroyo Bar, where I again observed dancing on the dance floor, loud amplified music that could be heard approximately 50 feet away. The security guards at that location, there was only 2 security guards, which now there's, from the new conditional use dated June 27, 2013, they're required to have 3 security guards. And at approximately 12:20, we conducted this operation, which was 20 minutes after they are allowed to continue to operate on a weekend. Also during the investigation, Mr. Morales was actually physically seen sitting behind DJ equipment, which is prohibited, hooked up to speakers, playing the amplified music. We advised him again, and he stated that he is familiar with his new conditions. opposed by the administrator, but basically said he doesn't have to follow them because he is in the appeal process. Although 6 out of those 8 violations were from the previous, have been always on his conditional use permit, even if it wasn't from the new conditional use permit. Also, one more thing, during our investigation we also observed 2 male and female patrons exit the bar during an investigation that showed obvious signs of intoxication. They had trouble maintaining their balance, unsteady gait, the odor of alcoholic beverage emitting from their breath and body. When it asked about this, he had no response to this investigation. So again, it's my opinion that he continues to this day to completely disregard what the officers have told him multiple times, and the zoning administrator, that has been explained to him in full detail. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank both of you for your testimony and your work that you do in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now we'll hear from the appellants, Armando Chavera and Rafael Alvarez. Now, you have 5 minutes as the appellant, and if Rafael wishes to speak, he will have 2 minutes on his own. So you can do it either way. Both of you could speak because you submitted them together, so either way.
I'll go ahead and speak for the appellant.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, first of all, this is the first real hearing that's taken place on this matter. It was before the zoning administration, but the consultant there didn't argue any of the merits of the case. He presented the application. He's a fine expediter, but he didn't argue the evidence. What I did is I got a copy of the zoning file and looked at the police activity for the last 2.5 years. First of all, 95% of all the police activity are bar checks. There's been one act of violence there in the last 2.5 years, as documented by LAPD reports, and that was a patron who slugged a security guard, and that's it. No one's been cited for prostitution at all, so I really don't know where that comes from. Might be related to the bar girl investigations that have occurred. But the reality is that these violations have been largely benign, and I don't mean to trivialize it, but they've been for patrons dancing, 2-3 couples dancing. They've been noise that's come out of 25, maybe 50 feet of the location. And the extortion attempt by the 18th Street gang was self-reported by the manager. So he went to the police station and reported that, so that really shouldn't count against him. Now, these visits that took place do show some violations of the CUP, but they're not violations of violence. As a matter of fact, I presented some materials there, which you have on your desk, and what they do is there are 2 pages of what was the prior CUP condition and the requested change as a result of today's hearing. We'd like to resolve this matter today, and I can take you through that very quickly. The first thing I want to point out is on page 1, on line 26, that should be 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., not 2 a.m. 2 a.m. was the prior time that's still in force during this appeal. But the hours of operation aren't related to the problems that have occurred at the location. I don't believe there's a necessary nexus to establish that because the bar is open till 2, that the problems that are complained about arise from the time. First of all, I enclose a letter that I received or was received by the client from the ABC. ABC says, well, we got the reports from the LAPD, but we don't think there's enough factual matter to file an accusation, so they didn't proceed at all. And they're the licensing agency for the alcohol, beer, and wine license there. So if they didn't take action despite having the reports, that tends to show to me a weakness in the report procedure. But what I really want to discuss is the photographs that start after that letter. That corner on the first photograph is across the street from the bar. Every night, there's a grill that's set up there with buckets of beer. Photograph 2 shows the litter caused by people stopping to eat there, and they stop with cars, they park their cars in people's driveways. These people are constantly coming over to my client's bar to use the bathroom. He says, you can't use it, you're not patrons. So they go and they urinate along that street and cause problems for the homeowners. I have one of the residents here today to testify, Mr. Hion, that the problems that are caused there are caused by the bar, not. They're caused by this corner that you can see on the photographs. You can see the, on one of the photographs, the grill tied up behind the wall. It's taken out every night, and it's set up on the corner there. You can see the burn marks from the tremendous clients that it gets. It gets people who stop in up until 4 a.m. to drink beer and eat food at that corner. They don't use any bathrooms. They use the neighborhood as their toilet, and that's what the residents are complaining about. Now, again, the hours of operation aren't related to that. Security guards. LAPD wants 3 guards in there. That's a heavy burden because they charge 80 to 90 a day. They want 3 guards because they want one outside, which is okay. They want one to patrol inside, which is okay. But they want 1 guard to just stand at the bar fixture, which is about 10, 12 feet long, just stand there so people don't go behind the back bar. This I didn't just conjure up, but it's in one of the emails that Officer Dickey's, whom I worked with in 2007, 2008, 2009 on this place.
If you could wrap it up, please. Thank you.
Yes, I will. The fixing of the tables and the chairs are fine. The chairs have narrow wooden legs. You can't really affix those without causing liability problems or injuries to clients. Now, all in all, the evidence here doesn't support the cutting of hours. We can work with the security guards, that's not a problem. But when you ask for 3 guards and then you cut the time of the bar, what you're really doing is eliminating the use. And that's what LAP wants to do. That's in their emails to the ZA. This is not a bad bar. Believe me, I represent bars all over the place. This one does not have the problems, and they're not in the materials reports at all. It's really a bar that has one violent episode of somebody being hit in 2.5 years. No prostitution. The bar activity was weak at best, in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
I'll answer any questions you might have, but 5 minutes is a short amount of time.
Yes. Do you have any questions for now? No? Anybody?
I will when they're all done.
Okay. Thank you. No questions now. Thank you.
I do have the bar manager here who will answer questions. I have an interpreter. I have also a resident, if you'd like to hear from him.
Well, if they filled out cards, they'll have a right to speak. Yeah.
Okay. And,
Yeah.
but
If we have any questions, okay.
Are they subject to that 5-minute timeline?
2 minutes, actually.
All
Thank
right.
you. Rafael Alvarez. And after Rafael Alvarez, Marcelo Morales. Actually, I could call all of you up right now. It's Rafael Alvarez, Marcelo Morales, and Jose Alberto Giron. Welcome, and you have two minutes to speak.
So if we speak Spanish, doesn't matter?
Yeah, that's fine. You can speak Spanish, and if you need it, we'll give you 3 minutes for the interpretation.
Okay. Yo soy el de seguridad del Arroyo Bar.
I'm the security guard for the Arroyo Bar.
Pues les puedo decir que el lugar es tranquilo,
I can tell you that
moderado.
the place is calm, it's moderate.
La cosa es que no pueden haber 3 guardias porque casi no llega mucho personal al bar. Entre semana es muy poco las personas, no alcanzan ni las 20 personas al menos.
The thing is that you can't really have 3 guards there because there really aren't a lot of patrons that come during the week. There may be about 20 patrons that come in during the week.
Sí, pues de mi parte pues casi nunca han habido casi problemas ahí en lo que es el local. Lo que es el local verdaderamente, los problemas siempre son afuera del bar, tal vez por la comida que se vende ahí.
Well, for my part, I really haven't had any real problems there at the bar. The problems come from outside because of the food that is sold there.
Y eso es todo lo que yo tal vez pueda decir.
And that's all that I could possibly say.
Okay, thank you. Gracias. Marcelo Morales? Oh.
Yo soy el administrador del lugar.
And the administrator of the place.
Problemas ahí no ha habido. Todos los problemas son del otro lado porque llega gente con cervezas. Y ahí se ponen a tomar y son los que están orinando a él.
Well, there really aren't any problems in the bar. The problems come from outside, from people coming with... the problems come from across the street, from people coming with drinking their beer and urinating.
Lo de 3 guardias es demasiado porque casi llega muy poca gente.
And also the issue with the 3 guards is too much because there's very few people that actually come.
Y todos los problemas de ahí pues es del otro lado porque ese señor se está vendiendo comida ahí hasta las 4 de la mañana y están tomando ahí y la gente que se anda orinando ahí en la.
And in reality, all the problems are coming from across the street, from the guy who sells food there until 4 in the morning, and all the people that stay there drinking and urinating. That is all.
Thank you. Gracias. José Alberto Girón?
Sí. Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Mi nombre es José Alberto Girón.
My name is José Alberto Girón.
Vivo enfrente del bar.
I live in front of the bar.
Vivo cerca de allí.
I live close to there.
Y para mí como vecino es un lugar que yo no veo problemas.
And me as a neighbor, it's a place where I don't really see a lot of problems.
Solo hay un problema,
There is
que
only
es cruzando la calle, no en el bar.
There's only one problem, and that is across the street, not at the bar.
Cruzando la calle hay una persona que vende comida,
Across the street is a person who sells food.
vende tacos, burritos y otras cosas, y esa persona, yo he ido a comer allí,
And that person sells tacos, burritos, and other things, and I've gone to eat there myself.
y él en las hieleras que tiene allí donde tiene las sodas, él vende cervezas. Yo he visto, y cuando salen del bar, el señor que vende tacos cruzando la calle, él le vende cervezas a los que salen de allí afuera, el que vende los tacos.
The person selling the food in the cooler that where he keeps the sodas, he also keeps beer because I've seen it. He sells it to the people coming out of the bar. And this is the person across the street. He sells them the food, but also sells them the beer.
Y esas personas se quedan comiendo ahí, se quedan tomando, y esas personas yo los veo que se orinan ya cuando están tomados, después que comen tacos.
And these people who come and eat their tacos also drink their beer and urinate. And I've seen it. The people that stay there and eat their tacos also urinate.
Ya ellos ya se ponen a orinar en la calle, se queda el grupo hasta las 4 o 5 de la mañana y hacen bulla.
And these people urinate on the street and they stay there till 4 or 5 in the morning making a ruckus.
No es el bar lo cierran, pero esa persona, ahí se queda toda la gente allá afuera.
It's not the bar closes down, but all those people stay outside.
Y entonces ese es el problema. Yo vivo cerca y escucho los gritos de los que se quedan allá comiendo tacos y el señor les vende cerveza, el que vende la comida, y ahí es donde se escucha mucha bulla. No es el bar.
And I live close by and I can hear the screams of these people that are drinking, who receive the beer from the guy selling them the tacos. It's not the bar, it's these people where they're buying the tacos.
Y allí hay otro lugar también cruzando la Florence, que se llama el Juego Nightclub, y de ahí se vienen a comer tacos y ahí se quedan tomados. Ese es el problema que hay. No es el bar, Arroyo Bar el problema. No, el problema es la persona que vende comida y se queda vendiendo cerveza después de las 2 de la mañana.
Great, thank you. you can
There is
finish up.
also another place down the street on Florence that is the problem. And the problem is not the bar. It's not the Arroyo bar. It's the person across the street selling the food.
Gracias. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last public speaker on this item is Rob Catherine from Councilmember Price's office, CD9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Rob Catherman. And I had come here this afternoon to support the zoning administrator's conditions and action in this matter. However, after listening to LAPD and the laundry list of violations and the continued violations month after month, year after year, I think I'd like to ask the committee to revoke their conditional use permit for the site. They have just not proven to be a good business and a good neighbor in our district.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Let me ask the ZA if you could come up, please, and ask procedurally that typically as we hear these items, this committee, it's been my experience, gives great deference to your research, findings, analysis, LAPD's recommendations. In this instance, we have the zone administrator yourself who has recommended stricter conditions. We have a council district office who is recommending revocation. If we were to move in the direction of revocation, is there a proper record in place for us to move in that direction?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to clarify a few statements made by LAPD and appellants. This case is not conditional use. Actually, the prior bar, Los Amigos Bar, created a lot of public complaints about nuisance activity at the bar. City initiated this revocation case to evaluate the situation. That's the first time in year 2009, 32 operating conditions were imposed. There is per section 1227.1, there's the nuisance surveillance procedure. That procedure was established with the intent that the government's effort should be really put in place to mitigate the nuisance activity first before we revoke the use. This is the second condition compliance. First compliance review was done year 2011. And with the LAPD testimony and all continuous violation of the condition, I thought about revocation. Only reason I gave them second chance is that the current operator has lease until June 15, year 2014. So this is in my opinion, last chance to give them opportunity to improve the situation, acknowledge of violation of those conditions, and try to do their best effort to meet the conditions, resulting in no nuisance activity around this bar. If we revoke the use, I don't know what extent we will show the city agency has demonstrated our effort to the mitigate nuisance activities. That's why I like to give them second chance until, which is just within a year. So that's why I recommended instead of a 9-month plan approval, maybe 6 months might be, in this case, more appropriate. That way, city has more time to evaluate their performance at the next condition compliance review. And at the point, the property owner will have an option to not to extend their lease, and maybe they can rent this place for something else other than bar. That was my opinion. All the evidence you heard from LAPD and Council District 9, I think it will be up to the committee to decide, but I highly recommend that give them at least a short time period, 6 months instead of 9 months as I originally recommended. My determination was made a couple months before, I think 2 or 3 months before this committee meeting. So I thought they will coincide with the next lease expiration of a lease, but at this point you can shorten it to 6 months. So they really have to show, it should be noted that property owner and business owner operator, if they do not show their best effort to improve the situation, the city has every intention to revoke the use at that point. That's my recommendation. So it'll be totally up to your discretion.
Okay, thank you.
But again, this is not conditional use. This is a revocation process. The intent of this section is to show, lead the city as a city agency. We just show every effort to mitigate nuisance activity first before we revoke the use. So
Let me ask this.
that's my
Thank you
recommendation.
very much. And let me ask the same question to the city attorney's office. Is if we were to move in a direction of revocation, because I've seen some other cases where there have been some complications, is there a proper record for that for us?
Well,
proper
I don't-
procedure?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. I don't see any mention of revocation in the documents before me, and I don't believe that it's agendized in that way. The zoning administrator?
It was a conditional compliance review. Since my recommendation was not revocation, I imposed and made more strict conditions in terms of a number of security guard and hours of operation. I don't think it was put it as a potential revocation at this point.
Okay, so I guess what they could do is, I'm asking the zoning administrator, so their discretion is the term as to how much time they would allow them?
I required 9 months, but I'm recommending committee to, it's up to their discretion to make it a shortened time
Okay.
period to 6 months.
So I would recommend that as well. So you play with the amount of time. If you want to give them a lesser amount of time, a shorter leash, you could do that. And then could we come back at that point with revocation? Would you have
We could come back in 6 months with revocation
6
if
months.
that's the appropriate action we would like to take at that time, correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I just wanted to clarify that it's up to the discretion of this committee, but I've seen some cases where we didn't have the proper record before us for procedure, and we proceeded anyway, and it complicated the case later. So I just wanted to make sure, and the advice we're getting is that the more appropriate action, if we were want to revoke, is to stick with a 6 month, come back at that time. Should we want to do the most extreme next to revocation, that's probably the more appropriate course of action, it sounds to me like. So, but anyway, Mr. Englander?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I had a question for you as well. Thank you very much for all your work and diligence. This is very disturbing, and the fact that this isn't just a second chance that, from what I'm seeing, we're giving them. It's a third and fourth. It says here the current business owner operator has been at the site since June 15th of 2009. But then the current business owner operator purchased the subject bar in 2010 without any knowledge of the operating conditions. But since 2010, we've had numerous call-outs from LAPD, and we've had the officers go out and had numerous arrests for multiple violations, from threats, fights, illegal parking, loitering, sexual activities, loud music, lewd and lascivious acts, urinating and defecation. It goes on and on and on. There's been more than enough warning. The last communication that the officer up here earlier said during his investigation is that they stated on record that they don't have to follow the conditions because they're on appeal. I find it appalling, quite frankly, that that's their mentality, and it shows that that's their history, and I don't see the behavior changing. The fact that their representative says there's no nexus is insulting to both the general public and this committee, for the record. There's been a lot of time spent with LAPD that's already spread thin, and there's been a continuous history here, including the most recent action that, while they knew they were coming here today, just this last Saturday, had an issue and a violation as well. While these might be new conditions that are suggested and being imposed, it was said earlier that there was a series of conditions prior to this that were overlapping these part of these new conditions that weren't maintained either. So this isn't a second chance. This is the 30th or 40th chance. Every time an officer goes there and makes an arrest and talks to the owner, puts him on notice, quite frankly. there's been a lot of problems. They're complaining about 3 uniformed security officers that are licensed with the state of California, yet their current condition had 1, and they didn't follow those rules and have been cited for that. So I have a lot of problems with this. I realize and understand due process, the fact that this wasn't perhaps notified for revocation, which is the request of the council office, and I support that as well. I would make the recommendation that another 6 months. We've all heard exactly what the record has been here. It's been clear, and I respect where the chair's going on this and his recommendation to make sure that we yield on the side of legal caution. And so it would be my recommendation and suggestion that we bring it back here in 30 days and reschedule it on the agenda for revocation. Let's hear back on what's going on, if they clean up their act, and keep them on a very tight leash, because LAPD's resources, they put a lot of work and time and effort, and the people in that community don't feel safe because of it. And that's a real issue. This is a public safety issue. And so I think we should address it as such. We don't have to wait for somebody to get killed and come back here and say, oh, well, we didn't agendize it that way. We could have saved somebody's life. When we have an opportunity and a fiduciary responsibility, quite frankly, to those local residents. And so I would suggest that it come back here, agendize as a revocation in 30 days, and let's see what's going on then. That would be my suggestion. But it's up to the chair. I defer to the
Let me
the chair.
ask CD9. You've heard the testimony. I get the sense there's a real need to either deny the appeal, obviously, and or revoke and come back in 30 days. Do you have any preference on either of those?
The 30 days that Councilman Englander proposes, I think, is a good suggestion, and we would support that,
Okay.
Councilman, yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? This item? One final question on my point. The additional security guard at the bar, I probably haven't been paying attention to every case, but I haven't come across that often, to have a security guard at the bar. Is that common or not in some of the conditions we put in?
It is common. Originally, they were required to have 2 during all operating hours. The operating hours were from 10 a.m. until, I believe, 12 o'clock midnight during the week and 2 o'clock during weekend times. So they supposed to have 2 guards all the time during those hours. That was the original condition we imposed in year 2009. When we reviewed the condition compliance the first time in year 2011, LAPD and all the testimony showed that some improvements were made. So the security guard was reduced to 1 at that point. So this time, I increased 1 to 2 guards during the week and 3 guards on weekend days, and restricted more operating hours.
Okay.
City Attorney here, I want to ask the zoning administrator whether there would be sufficient time to give notice for revocation and to craft some findings.
Today is 30. First of all, I would not be available in the month of September.
No, I just think it's important, since she's been working on the case, if you want to do it some time when she would be available. So can you give the committee a date and make sure that we have enough time?
Anytime in October, I'll be available, and I think we'll have a sufficient time to
I just wanted to
for
make
public
sure.
notice.
45 days? 45 days?
45 days should be.
That 45 days sufficient?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So let the record reflect that Mr. Englander made motion to agendize this item in 45 days, more or less, in committee for revocation proceedings.
And deny the appeal.
And deny the appeal, yes. Thank you very much. Next item.
Next item, council member, are the commissioner appointments. Item 1 is communication for the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Joseph Halpert to the West LA APC.
Thank you, Mr. Halper. In Spanish, I would call you Tocayo. Yes, Tocay, Jose, yes, and that means when two people have the same name, we call each other Tocayos. So anyway, welcome, and this is a reappointment. First of all, thank you for your service to the West LA Area Planning Commission, and we just want to, once again, not only thank you for your service, but also hear from you on your thoughts on your service so far, and what do you think of the area planning commissions, and secondly, your continued interest in serving on this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and commission members. I have enjoyed my time with the commission in this regard. I'm still learning. I've been there now about a year and a half, and it's a very, as a quasi-judicial commission, I feel that I've got a lot more to go in terms of learning. I plan to get better at it.
Well, thank you, and we are lifelong learners after all. And one thing that stuck out to me from your extensive and impressive resume is that you were knighted by His Majesty Karl the 13th Gustav of Sweden. So that must have been interesting.
Yes, it was.
Well, thank you again. Any questions or comments for Mr. Halpern?
Just a comment. Do we call you sir now or honorable? Or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We should be calling you sir.
I think the term, the Swedish term is Truman.
Truman.
First of all, your educational experience is remarkable. I don't think there's a university, certainly on the West Coast, you haven't attended, and if that wasn't enough, New York and Penn as well. So, and your community service involvement is just as spectacular. I just wanted to make one comment, and rather than make them to every commissioner that's up before us, Mr. Chair, if I could, and I stated this earlier when we had an APC member come before us this morning in council, is that the area planning commissioners and the city-wide planning commissioners play such a critical and important function in shaping the city that oftentimes, quite frankly, those boards make the very planning decisions that affect and impact or benefit communities where we never even have the opportunity as council members. And really, truly view your work and volunteerism and dedication to the community to adhere to the spirit of what that neighborhood wants or doesn't want is really an extension of our staff, but one that needs to be commended. It's not easy. Oftentimes, most people will come here, and while I like to say as elected officials, it's almost like being a celebrity for ugly people. No, scratch that.
For the record, I don't judge.
The less than comfortable working conditions and hours and overpayment of your volunteerism, and oftentimes very crowded and hostile environments where you get 200, 300, 400 people out for a given project and have to take the totality of circumstances into consideration of what's the right project, what makes sense, and not just listen to the pressure of who shows up that night or that day, and try to sift through that as a volunteer as well is so critically important. And I know that I speak for my area as well, and I've talked to many neighborhood councils who really look at the guidance of the APCs very seriously, and that we just have to applaud what you do, all of you that are going to be coming before us and continue to serve or being appointed for the first time. It's an incredible experience. It's an awesome responsibility, and one that I hope when you look at a project, you're not influenced by, again, those supporters that they bus in that are artificial, perhaps sometimes. We like to call it AstroTurf instead of grassroots nowadays, or the opposition for the same rate because you've got so many NIMBYs that might live just next door. But try to look at a project and does it really fit that neighborhood? Is it a good applicant? Are they reputable? Does it make sense? Is it fair, and is it the right thing to do? And that's hard to do oftentimes with that pressure. And so I appreciate everything that you've done and continue to do.
I'd like to just say that I've been very impressed with my colleagues. They are remarkable in all the qualities that you look for, and I'm learning from them
Well, thank you very much. And so with that, we'll move this item without objection, and the clerk is not here, so we don't know when you will go to council. But do we have a date, the CLA?
Well, the last day for council action is September the 27th.
Okay, so we'll work here with the mayor's office and everyone else to get you a date when you go to appointed for the full
I understood
council.
from what I'm told that it was the 10th.
The 10th? Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very
Very
much.
good.
Mr. Cedillo.
He knows more than we do.
Just one question. One thing.
Our parks. I live in an area which is actually very privileged, so I'm not going to address that, my local experience. But I've worked with Watts, and I've worked with Central LA, and in New York with Bedford-Stuyvesant and the other more impacted communities. And I think what you need to have is a strong local commitment, or that would be a council or a vehicle to express the local concerns and the local volunteer efforts in the community. It would be AYSO, Little League, whatever other sports organizations, youth organizations, or in the cultural arts and so on. I think you need a local base for all this. I think it gets, from my experience, which is not my local experience, is very different in the Palisades. But I think you need a local base to do a good job.
That would be universal, though, with apply in the Palisades.
Yeah, we have it, and it's easy. But it would not be that easy in some of the other communities.
What about this Bryant Park experience?
Would you repeat that?
The Bryant Park experience, this
The-
transformation park next to the library, New York City, Manhattan.
The O'Brien Park. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, in fact, the architect who designed that park, it happens to be a son of a friend. But it's a very, it works well. It's very popular, and I think even commercially viable. I think it's a good project for both usage, community usage, and economics.
Thank you very much. So without objection, move this item to council. Thank you. Next item, please, number 2.
It's the reappointment of Ms. Gail Canard to the Cultural Heritage Commission.
Gail, welcome back. And thank you for your work on the Cultural Heritage Commission. Commission that I think, just like the Area Planning Commission, is very important, but also very difficult, because I see all the cases that come before us, and just like art, we all have a difference of opinion as to what can be historical and what's not historical, and we all have different opinions about that. But certainly we appreciate the work you put in, and I appreciate that the mayor has selected you to continue serving on this commission. So thank you, and just anything you'd like to share with the committee.
No, I'm appreciative of this reappointment. I was appointed originally to serve out an unexpired term, so this would be my first full term, and so I appreciate the reappointment. I appreciate all the things that Councilman Englander said about the service. I didn't serve in the military, and I feel this is kind of my way to pay back in a way that my family members who did serve in the military or in law enforcement. So I'm privileged to have this opportunity. I'm a native Andalino, and it makes me proud to be able to contribute.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
It's an observation, okay? This is military-esque. They'll be shooting at you.
No, I've experienced that too.
But born, Mr. Huizar is a former school board, LAUSD school board member, proud product of LAUSD, but then, went to Stanford and Berkeley and Dartmouth, just some institutions we've heard of.
Few out-of-town schools.
USC. It's just incredible resume, again. Like, did they just keep getting, the last one was a night, and now this is, you just far exceeding anything he's ever done. It's refreshing to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Stanford part didn't come out in my. I saw Berkeley, so I was going to recommend you, but I didn't know you went to Stanford. Now I may not, because I'm a Berkeley alum. So.
Well, I did go to Berkeley, too, so I got my master's degree at Berkeley. So.
Yes. Any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move this item forward to committee. And also October 10th? September 10th, I'm sorry. Very important date. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item, item number 3.
It's the appointment of Ms. Gail Willis to the South LA agency.
Thank you. Welcome. And Ms. Willis, you're no stranger to these hallways, and thank you for your service and your commitment not only to this commission, but the general work you do throughout the city and at LAUSD. So thank you. I remember that. And your new council member had awarded you before some recognitions, and so as a senator. But thank you for your service, and I know you have been doing quite a bit of work. I recall your work when I was on the school board, and I appreciate that. But anything you'd like to share with the committee?
I just wanted to stipulate it would just be an honor for me to serve on the South LA Area Planning Commission. I'm willing to learn a great deal, and we are lifelong learners. I noticed you used that term earlier. That's an educational term we use as an educator. And it would just be a privilege for me to have confirmation of my appointment.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
The resumes are just getting longer. And not only have you done so much,
yes,
but you were actually even more ripe than the other two, whereas you taught multiple subjects to fifth grade students, and this will be much like that. So,
well, thank you.
For the record, I don't judge. Okay.
Got my support. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll move this item September 10th to full council. Yes. Thank you very much.
September 10th or 3rd?
No, this is the 3rd.
The 3rd. Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Okay,
September 3rd. We'll see you in council. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is the appointment of Ms. Marta Segura to the City Planning Commission.
Okay. And welcome, Ms. Segura. And we appreciate your service. You're being appointed to the Citywide Planning Commission. All these commissions take a lot of time, but I do recognize the City Planning Commission. I've noticed the meetings are longer sometimes, and they're all long, but this is a huge commitment as well. And your extensive experience in working with the community helps, because our planning projects are not only the bricks and mortar, but certainly working with people on whether we support or not support, or work with the community and making sure that we all agree in whether a planning project makes sense or not. So thank you for your service, and anything you'd like to share with the committee?
Well, like the other commissioners, I'm very privileged to have been nominated to this commission. I'm humbled by it. I'm excited about it. I really feel an opportunity here for using my ability to look at things through a systemic, global lens, because there's so many things that make a healthy community. So thank you for this opportunity, and I'm excited about that confirmation on September 10th.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments?
Well, just so the general public knows, in all fairness, we had a Trojan earlier, now we have a Bruin. So, and
Mr. Cedillo likes that. He's a Bruin.
And you submitted a dissertation of why you'd like to be a planning commissioner. So again, it just gets even more impressive. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, we'll see you on September 10th. No objection from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, item number 5.
The reappointment of Mr. Steve Cochran to the South Valley APC.
Welcome, how are you? Another Berkeley. Sure. Just don't walk in the well, if you know what I mean. You're an attorney, so you know what that means, right? They should do this in court, right? They put tables out there so you wouldn't be able to walk in the... Well, welcome, and you're being appointed to the South Valley Area Planning Commission, and thank you for your service, and anything you'd like to share with the committee?
No, thank you for having me. Like to serve in any way I can. Attended public schools throughout in LA and university-wise. Also a very proud Stanford hater.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No hate.
We don't have to hear any more. You're conversed.
Since you're from my district, we'll let the grilling begin. No, we've had the
I think I'm from Leban's district.
Well, yes, but representing my district
Yes, sir.
is part of my district in the South Valley as well. But with that, just wanted to welcome you again for your reappointment, and I know we had the opportunity to catch up the last couple of days, and look forward to working with you on as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we recognize these commissions take a lot of time, and all professions take a lot of work and effort. As an attorney, obviously, you have other commitments in doing this, but we appreciate you taking the time to serve on this commission as well. So with that, no objection, September 10th? September 3rd. The 3rd, okay.
We want the 10th, for whatever reason you can.
Thank you. Same law school?
No, I used to advise the APC, and then they sent me here.
Oh, thank you. What's better?
No comment.
Okay. All right, next item, last and final item, item number 6, please.
Yes, it's a joint CAO-CLA report providing a status update on the consolidation of and the creation of the new Development Services Department.
Welcome.
Thank you. Tyler Munhall with the CAO.
Jason Clean with the CAO.
Gary Golitz with Matrix Consulting Group.
So before you today is the first status update from the CAO and the CLA on the Development Services Reform as part of the fiscal year 13-14 adopted budget. The Mayor and Council approved the functional integration of the Planning and Building and Safety Departments, as well as units from the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering, Department of Transportation, and Fire Department into a new department, yet to be named. As part of the budget process, the CO and the CLA were instructed to procure a management consultant, Mr. Gary Golitz from Matrix. We basically came forth today to let you know that the working group that we were instructed to establish, consisting of the departments that are part of this, as well as CO, CLA, Controller, and Personnel Department, was established in early June. We put together a request for proposals. The request for proposals was released. It resulted in Matrix Consulting being selected as the management consultant to assist us in the functional integration implementation plan. And we're here to answer any questions you have.
So where are we exactly in the process? This is a quarterly report, but after we've done all that, where are we in the process and what is upcoming? So what are the next steps?
So far, Matrix has met with managers and supervisors within all of the departments that are involved in the functional transfer, as well as internal stakeholders from council offices, the mayor's office, and departments unrelated to the functional transfer, also labor unions. They're also currently meeting with external stakeholders, and they're basically looking at what the city has done, what the profile of the development services within the city is. They're getting feedback from the stakeholders as to what their concerns and issues are in the process. They're also going to be doing a peer city review and looking at what we do well, what we can improve upon, and that will be part of their next status update to us.
Thank you very much.
Concurrent with that effort, the city family has been meeting, but we've been having meetings between all of the impacted departments. So, for instance, last week we had a series of meetings with the fire department and building and safety to start drilling down into the detail of exactly how to implement the transfer of various functions. So we're going to have those same types of meetings with BOE, DOT, planning, and building and safety.
And from the consultant, any brief synopsis of what you've been finding so far? Or I mean, because we're going to come back in October with recommendations. Is that?
We'll come back next month with another status update, and then the Gary's final report to us will be on October 4th, and then there will be a joint CAO-CLA report with those findings and our recommendations.
Okay. Anything to add?
I think they've summarized the process pretty well. Again, we're focused on a 7-week time frame to get the draft report to the CAO, CLA's office by September 20th, and 2-week basic response time to come out with a final report on October 4th. And I think we are focused on process, which means we want to make sure we talk to as many people as possible in all walks of life, whether they're AIA or developers or general contractors, union representatives, staff, managers, to make sure we give them a chance to provide input in terms of what is working and what is not working. We're also focused on product, and the product from our perspective is more than just organizational structure. It's also looking at the processes that exist right now within the city and how user-friendly those processes are and where there are opportunities to streamline those processes. And then we're also taking a look at the technology decisions that the city ultimately is going to have to make regarding Build LA to try to make the process seamless to the public from a technological perspective as well as to staff so that those permits, the handoffs in essence, are transparent to the applicant basically.
Great. Thank you. So anything else now before we go to public comment? Mr. Englander?
Mr. Steele first.
I'm coming late to this. Excuse me. So I'm interested, your focus on process and organizational design. What type of focus do you have on the culture of the organization and the culture of the various organizations that are trying to be brought together? I have an interest in that. I'm pleased to see that you're dealing with other outside stakeholders, but I'm very interested in how we get to this cultural change and whether or not it's just whether or not we've predetermined a kind of organizational result, or are there other things that we should be looking at that might get us to the objectives that we have?
There's a council policy on the table. That's the council policy we are working with, which is there shall be functional integration or functional transfer of these functions into a new department. That's the policy we're working with. I will say, as your question regarding culture, really it's the people in these particular functions that are going to make or break this change. And if we are not conscious of the culture and the need to work within those cultures and those different functional organizations to make sure that we all recognize who we're here to serve and that we all recognize that we all have to serve that common purpose, if we don't pay attention to that, it will fail. And so I think organizational structure is certainly one of the tool sets that we have to be concerned with in terms of better customer service, but the people and how those people in departments, in these divisions, interact together to provide effective customer service is something that we have to be conscious of as we bring recommendations back to Plum and back to Council.
And Councilman, there's a couple efforts we've also been working with concurrently. This is more on the city family side. We came out with the frequently asked questions document a few weeks ago, which responded to about 400 questions to employees. That's attached to the report. And that's a living document. We'll continue to update it throughout the process. The other thing is there's a working group of all the departments and there's sub-working groups. And one of those working groups is personnel and work culture issues. So personnel is lead on that, and they will help. They're going to be doing employee workshops to deal with change. They are also the lead on the FAQ, or the frequently asked questions. So there are those efforts going on as well.
So just building up on what Tyler was saying, is the personnel department is going to play an integral role in actually establishing camaraderie amongst the different work cultures. One of the things they were very helpful with the creation of the Economic and Workforce Development Department was actually going in and leading meetings with our Employee Relations Division of the CEO's office, talking to the employees, finding out what the concerns were, and getting to the root of the concerns. They always have a psychologist at the meetings to make sure that the questions are being addressed, and the question being asked isn't necessarily the question that they want an answer to. And once some of the functional processes that will come out of the October reports are dealt with, they can begin the process of saying, organizationally, this unit is going to be working hand in hand with this unit. We anticipate that they might be co-located at this location, and then getting those units together to talk through some of the work culture issues that exist today.
I appreciate the adherence to the policy directive of the council, but I'm concerned that it might be too restrictive or would not give you the flexibility to do your work, because I'm more focused on the broader goal of creating the efficiency for the city to the public, as I am concerned about what silos we merge together.
And I appreciate those comments, Council Member. All I can do is operate within the parameters that Council has established, and the parameters are that basically functional integration or functional transfer is going to happen effective January 1st. That said, organizational structure is one of the tool sets that any organization has to utilize to provide effective customer service. And right now, you have silos all over the place that make it confusing for the permit applicant. So I recognize and hear what you're saying, and I'm certainly conscious of that. But again, I've got to work within the parameters that were established by council.
But what you're saying is organizational restructuring is one of many different recommendations that could achieve the overall purpose or goal, whatever that may be, more efficiency, et cetera, correct?
I'm saying it's one of the tools. I'm saying it would be difficult to achieve comprehensive reform of your development review process ignoring organizational structure.
Okay.
One of the things that Matrix has been asked to do is identify the problems in the existing system and look at the problems independent from the functional consolidation. Once the problems have been established, they need to put them into two buckets. One of which is these are the problems that functional integration will solve. Organizational problems, accountability problems, the workflow issues, timeline issues, who's responsible, who's managing the process. Then we have other issues, technology issues, or ordinance-related issues, things that the functional integration won't solve. And they'll also be providing solutions to how we can address those types of issues as well. So from what is the problems in our development services system, they're looking at everything holistically, and functional integration is one piece of the solution, and they'll also be making recommendations on the additional pieces of the solution outside of functional integration.
In doing this, are you so you had stated the array of some of the users. How are you monitoring this, or how are you getting the impact from them? The impact of these changes on them. How can we measure this? How are we going to be able to?
I think the CAO's office, the first day we met, the CAO himself personally said, I need some metrics by which I can measure success. It is our responsibility to identify those metrics. Some of them are probably more quantifiable than others.
Right.
But I would say that as the representative from the CAO's office said, we're here to identify problems. I will say candidly there's no shortage of them. And I will say candidly that there are numerous opportunities that the city can take to provide better customer service. Again, organizational structure is one of the tools it can use to provide better customer service. It's not the only tool, but it's an essential one. And I think the issue for me when we look at how the customer views the process and the service, it is looking at how long it takes me to get through the process. And right now, that is a significant opportunity in terms of looking at cycle time. I would say some of the cycle times we are observing represent significant opportunities to improve service across the board. And I would say there are some significant opportunities to streamline the process across the board. So there are no shortage of opportunities here. The issue we're dealing with is we've got 7 weeks to get from A to Z, and so we've got to marshal our resources to look at the process holistically from a customer perspective, which may be different from some of how the departments view it in terms of what the customer owns versus what they own. Our response is going to be, you have to look at it from the customer's perspective. That's where we're going. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, and let me turn over to Englanders. But when that begs the question, which is, organizational restructuring is one of the tools.
Yes, sir.
For the CAO and the consultant, would it be best then to just have you analyze the whole thing and then come back and say, if you agree that organizational restructuring is one of the solution amongst others, rather than be confined to say, do reorganizational structure and look at all the problems within that framework? What is the best option to do here?
The CAO's office has been very clear that it does not expect the study to purely focus on organizational structure. They want us to focus on processes as well, recognizing that in some cases those processes are independent of the organizational structure and need to be addressed independent of the organizational structure. So I think the CAO's office recognizes the solutions here are something that's in addition to organizational structure, recognizing that, at least from my perspective, that organizational structure is one of the tools that has to be used to address these problems, but not the only tool. Okay. But I would say you will not be able to achieve complete solution to these problems if what you do is leave organizational structure the way it is now.
Okay.
Let me
go ahead.
Wrap up with what type of cooperation are you getting from the collective bargaining?
Excellent. I think the issues that I'm seeing there are just anxiety because the organizational structure on January 1st is so nebulous. So, for example, one of the questions I got from an inspector is, who do I work for on January 1st, 2014? And I said, who do you work for now? And he identified who he worked for now, and I says, that's the person you're going to work for on January 1st, 2014. The organizational structure would not change so dramatically that you'd have a building inspector working for a city planner, typically. I mean, a building inspector is going to work for a senior building inspector, is going to work for a principal inspector. That's just the way the organization works now, and that's the way we'd recommend it work on January 1st, 2014. So I think the key issue for bargaining units is just trying to put them at ease about the nature of the change and how it might impact them. Some of that has been change regarding the word redundancy and whether that might mean layoffs and rifts, and our response has been no. And we've heard that loud and clear from the CAO's office and from the CLA's office that that's not on the table. Not to suggest we won't deal with efficiencies, but just to suggest short-term responses like that are counterproductive, basically, to the change that we're trying to make here. But I would say the responses I've received from the union representatives has been excellent.
What can the council do to help you guys?
The council members, I think, have been very helpful from identifying the kind of problems that end up in their office as it regards development review process. And I do not regard it as a sign of a healthy system when I see applicants frequently in council offices talking about how the process has been convoluted, complicated, untimely, etc. Those are signals of a process that's not healthy. And I think that's part of what we have right now is a system that's not very healthy. Council right now is being very helpful in terms of meeting with your staff and the staff identifying the nature of the problems you face and providing access to that staff. And I think that's been very helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Englander?
Thank you. And I want to thank you for putting this first draft report together and the FAQs and all the work that you guys have done. Well, I think the first thing that's missing in here is exactly what Mr. Cedillo started off with, is the history. We had the history. It starts right into the summary of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But what's missing here is the history, which I think needs to be included in all documents. I believe it was part of the original RFP, where we talked about the history. The fact is that it's been decades and decades, and study after study, and audit after audit, and survey after survey. And we've tried so many different things. I've been working on this issue, not consolidation solution, but this issue personally for 14 years now. And part of the working group that we started 14 years ago, which is still ongoing, which every mayor has, to this day, kept going and kept a lot of those same people on. And with that, we've identified all types of opportunities. First and foremost, the issue in survey after survey was there's two issues of why it's so difficult to deal with the city of Los Angeles and why the city has been labeled after, again, survey after survey. The most recent was the BizFeds, the one right before that, the annual Cosmon Cost of Doing Business, the USC survey. There's been so many every year. And the two primary issues are, one, the cost of doing business in the city of Los Angeles because of the business tax. And that's a whole other issue in another committee for another day. And the second issue is the bureaucratic nightmare and red tape of silos and dealing and bouncing back from person to person and accountability and transparency and efficiencies. And it was then that at one point, it was in fact under Mayor Hahn that started that working group, that task force. Mayor Villaraigosa kept it alive and renamed it and kept a lot of the same people on it. They tried and brought in some other professionals and tried 12 to 2, where they would thought they would get 12 departments down to 2 departments. They realized quickly that that was still too many, I think was the quote the final consultant came out with. And at the time, it was the deputy mayor that he brought on board came out with and said, it's got to be 1. And we've got to look at a way to streamline this and come up with best practices. And I think you've outlined a lot of the work in here with other blended departments here locally: San Diego, San Jose, Oakland, Sacramento, Long Beach, Glendale, Chicago, Dallas, Phoenix, Austin, Atlanta, and so on. It goes on and on and on, of all these other ones that have done this. Not that have started off blended, but have actually consolidated and blended.
Councilmember, some of those have blended and some have not. Chicago, for example, is not blended.
Okay, Chicago is it's under a blended department list. Just so you know.
It's not blended. I think the issue here is we wanted to try to learn from the successes as well as the unsuccess.
Oh, I see. The ones that have tried it. And
San Diego's tried it. I mean, they have a host of other problems down there, but I mean,
we don't mention San Diego in
No, we don't. They've tried it, and they unblended it to some extent. We're not sure whether they've actually pulled current planning out of development services. They may have just pulled long-range planning out of development services.
So those are the things we're going to be looking at.
Yes, sir.
We've done some here as well with HR and LAPD and OPS, and we've been through some of this before. This is a much better structured environment in the way that you're doing it, and it's much more transparent. I think the FAQ, the start of the FAQ has been very good. A lot of the concerns that people keep bringing up that I've heard as well are the fact that bargaining agreements, current employees, morale, making sure that they know exactly what's going on, understanding that there's not a trigger that's pulled January 1st, but rather if we do something, it's phased in, and it'll have a phasing plan to make sure that it's seamless. Right now, I know that there are obviously other morale issues as well, or one department saying the other department's worse than the other one, and why should they consolidate? So a lot of that you've identified in the FAQ, which I think is great, and it's online, and it's inviting and welcoming to all city staff and external stakeholders. One of the things that this committee voted on when we sent it to council, and then also the mayor adopted in his budget, and this passed unanimously by council and signed by the mayor as well. So it was that it include the stakeholder, internal and external outreach components are critically important. I see you've come up with a great outline to address all of that.
We have. I will say that the internal stakeholders, council members, and managers and supervisors have been very cooperative in talking to us. We are traveling over much of Los Angeles to reach out to external stakeholders, including phone and in some cases some one-on-one interviews, because the people indicate that's the only terms in which they're going to meet with us.
Yeah.
So we certainly recognize that this has to be a very inclusive process.
And with that, and the way that you've divided it up into the 3 various working groups, from the development functions and customer service to the personnel and work culture, which I think was brought up earlier today as well, and the support functions working group, and the fact that all of those are operating independently and collectively, I didn't envision that process. I like how that is taking shape, and I wanted to compliment you on that. But with this overall, colleagues, this change isn't easy, and there's no guaranteed exactly what change becomes. The only thing that we all know is we need to change something. It's not what we're doing doesn't work, and we can't keep assuming that if we continue to do what we do over and over and over again, we expect something to improve.
Right. I don't think that's a good predictor of success.
I think we've got to be cautious of the cultural issues that, for example, Mr. Cedillo mentioned. We've got to make sure that we protect the staff here, that we protect, because we've already lost a lot of really smart people and great people through early retirement through ERIP. We're down and we're spread thin as this economy recovers. We want to ensure that we keep projects online and in place and moving along, and that this doesn't take away from too much of their workloads while we're working on this as well, under a very tight time frame, I realize. And so that was also part of the FAQ, and I know you captured that, and it's in here. And so I want to thank you and compliment you on drawing attention to that as well. As I envision and working through this as well, is that while we lay out these timelines and these reports come back for input through this process, it will be evolving and changing and fluid. There won't be definite dates that, I know you have definite dates on your contract on deliverables, there's no question, and we're using valuable resources and have gone through a rigorous process to find the best and the brightest that have done this before. And so we want to ensure we hit those dates. But in terms of implementation dates, we don't want to, we won't rush into, a January 1st. We have to. In fact, we pulled this back for those who weren't part of this process before. This was actually more aggressive, where the council and the mayor, and I say the previous mayor, but the current mayor was part of the council at the time as well, wanted to actually, for those of you in the room that were part of this, and I know many of you were, actually wanted to move forward July 1st on functional transfer of a lot of the staff and functions. And we said, well, wait a minute, that's July 1st is right away. We need to bring on a consultant. We need to slow this down. We need to do it right. We need to do it in a transparent manner. We need to make sure that we can address all of the stakeholders meaning the people who do business with the city, as well as the city staff and employees. We need to address their concerns and understand what this means as a process to ensure it's protected and done right. We get one shot at doing something correct in this. And there's an opportunity to really change the structure the right way. And I'm glad you heard loud and clear that, I think one of the terms that was thrown out early on was a huge mistake in the RFP, which was redundancies, because I don't think people are redundant. And I think that was interpreted that way by some. And I saw you retract that as well and redefine it in this report. And I also wanted to thank you for that. We might have redundant processes now in terms of functionality, but once we bring people together under the same house, there's plenty of work to be done and opportunity to realign functions where they are more efficient, but the people are incredibly valuable. And so I want to make sure that is a message that is sent loud and clear, that this is not an opportunity to identify a person or a process as a redundancy and therefore a reduction, because it's not the intent, and it won't be the outcome since it's not the intent. And ultimately, we have the final say on that as well. So I want to thank you for again for the report, and look forward to watching this unfold as well.
Well, I'd like to thank council for the opportunity to serve. I will say, as I indicated, there's no shortage of problems, and that means there's no shortage of opportunities for improvement. You talked about redundant processes. I will guarantee you that you've got redundant processes, where a checker is checking someone who checked it, and then a third checker checks the checker. So we've got those kind of processes out there. They add no value. All they do is add cost, and they add time.
By the way, with that, one of the reasons this came about, and the first, and why the political will was so strong unanimously to move forward in this direction, is oftentimes the checker who checks the checker has changes to the checker, sends it back to the original checker who has additional changes that goes back to the second checker, then it finally maybe goes on to the third checker who also has changes that goes back to the first checker. So you got to throw the changes in when you throw in the checker, because that's often what happens.
I wasn't even there. I was just this is going through three people and it's not adding any value. So I think the concern we've got here is just it takes too long and there are just too many hands in the pot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to public comment now. Thank you very much. Rob Catherman, are you still here?
What's that?
There you are.
Being at the ice house.
We usually ask the discretion, you want to go first, last?
Right now, it's just they're calling me from the office, so I
Okay.
got to get back to work. But thank you for letting me come back up again. And I want to echo Councilman Englander's comment about we want to do this right. We just started as Councilman Cedillo July 1st, and we just want to make sure that all the options are examined when we do it. And is one of the options to keep the departments separate, but to create joint working groups between the two departments, for instance. So our ask is simply that we make sure we look at all of the options and explore how this can best be done, because God knows we have a huge problem and we need to be more business-friendly, more predictable, and more cost-efficient. So that's our ask, and thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Doug Astronaut. After Doug is Johnny Utronic.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
My name is Doug Arsenault with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 380 businesses, including many of the external stakeholders involved in this process. Vically strongly supports the planned reorganization into a development services department. We've long advocated for the elimination of the duplicative processes of several of these departments. As this process moves forward, the devil is very much in the details. We cannot stress enough the importance of transparency, and we hope to continue to be involved, as well as continue to involve our strategic partners, Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce and the Central City Association. We hope that this process will follow three major principles: a focus on accountability, better management of staff, and proper authority structures. We also want to encourage no loss in focus on long-term planning. The zoning code reform is just as much a priority for the development community as this work. We hope to work hand in hand with the city to ensure more consistent development review, that permit approval is more efficient, and that the zoning code, as well as the building and safety code, is implemented in a way that is transparent and easier to understand. Thank you, and we look forward to being involved in this process.
Right. Thank you very much. And we could save some time. I'll call three up at a time. Johnny Utronic, Javier Alipio, and Karen Izumi. You could all come up and sit here while the other speaks, so we could save some time as I call the next three after that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Johnny Utrinich. I am the president of the MCIA, the Inspectors Union, and I also am a senior electrical inspector, 26 years with the Department of Building and Safety. I oppose this because the issue I'm having is we keep on talking about being on target, taking care of things. How can you merge something as complex as two departments, planning and building and safety, in a 7-week period? I just can't see how an effective job can be done. This is very complex what we do. Our mission goals are different in both departments, cultural. I understand that there is an ordinance and it was passed, and that's what they want to put together. However, I just can't see how it would be done. And the other issue that I have is, although no disrespect to Gary, but we have not met. We will be meeting today. I wouldn't care, guys. We have a lot of questions about what's going to happen. We're not quite sure what the goals are, what they're proposing. So we don't have any opposition because we, at this point of what he's proposing, because we don't know. There's talk about consolidation of classifications. We don't know what those consolidations are. There's a summary report here that talks about new classifications, changes to staffing. We're told there will be no diminishing of staffing, but what are those changes to staffing? What are these new classifications? And also you have issues with meet and confer items with classifications. You just can't change what one inspector does and add what they do without dealing with those meet and confer issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Izumi. I'm the first vice president of the Inspectors Union. I'm also a senior fire sprinkler inspector. I also oppose this consolidation due to the time constraints. I don't see how it could be done without interrupting day-to-day business. And Also, has there been any studies that show, the efficiency of this consolidation to each department independently? If maybe each department was looked at independently, maybe they could resolve some of these issues that are outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Second Vice President to the MCIA, and I also oppose it, actually. The reason is because I believe that both departments do have separate goals and objectives and mission statements. I mean, in order for doing that, like a plan checker, he would review the zoning. We do enforce the zoning code for city planning. Now, when it's our position for the inspector, once the plans get approved, we look at the plans and make sure that the zoning is to the site plans itself, that the conditions are true as to what the site approved plans and permits can cite to that one particular site or every site. I'm also, after LADBS plan checks, the zoning sites, we need a non-biased decision for this independent consultant. I know they say 7 weeks, but how could you really get the vast population of what we have in our department, because we do have vast people working there. The true nature of what we do, from getting one person or two persons as to that particular job that's assigned to him and what job he does and implements in his department. 7 weeks, I think, is very short. And I have another little question regarding the new classification and consolidation of the existing city classifications. And that brings a lot of problems and questions to a lot of the employees, existing employees. I've been in the department for 36 years, and I know that we always have a lot of change, and a lot of times it's for the good. Thank you.
Let me ask you, so have you had an opportunity to meet with the consultant yet?
Only at a meeting that all he did was talk to us, and if we had questions, he would respond.
Are you guys I'm not familiar with your union. Are you a AFL-CIO affiliate or an independent?
No, we're Municipal City Inspectors Association. So
affiliated
not a
with any other-
union, but no.
Oh, you're an employee association.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony DeSantis, Jeff Bythway, John White.
Good afternoon, Councilman. First of all, I apologize for the dark glasses, but as you can see, my lens decided to fall out, and I don't have my glasses on, I can't see. I am with the Engineers and Architects Association, and let me state that the organization neither supports nor opposes the consolidation. What we are concerned about is that the stated purpose of this consolidation actually is going to accomplish the goal of improving services to the city of Los Angeles. We kind of doubt that you can get a positive result because nowhere have we seen or have we read that where the delays are have been identified. We get rhetoric that this consolidation will make things better, but nowhere have they said this is where the delays are and this is how we can improve it. At our last meeting with the consultant, he brought out some numbers, and I mentioned to them regarding building and safety. There was 2 reports by Controller Laura Chick and Controller Gruhl, and I encouraged him to read those reports, because in those reports you will find some truthful information other than just getting rhetoric from the departments. We kind of doubt, or we are concerned that the consultant has told us at the labor meetings that his report will not rubber stamp what the council has recommended. That when they complete their investigation or their research, that it comes out that this is not the way to do it, that they would state that. However, in their items, the point items in number 61, it states, however, the consultant is not revisiting the decision of council and mayor to functionally transfer rather how best to integrate those functions. That to us is a contradiction of what the stated purpose of these meetings are. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Tony DeSantis. I'm a mechanical training officer with the Department of Building and Safety, and I oppose the consolidation, functionally transfer, is that what we're calling it? One of the things that I want to bring attention to is that the City of Los Angeles spent approximately $600,000 fiscal year 2012-13 on a consultant to study proposed changes to the development services in Los Angeles, and the idea of consolidation was never considered at that time. So I guess one other thing I'd like to state is that considering this apparently appears that it's going to take place no matter what, even though I'm stating that I'm opposed to it, it's really important for me to kind of bring forward my opinion that I think that slowing down the process, I think would be a huge benefit so that we can look at whether or not this consolidation is actually going to benefit the citizens of the City of Los Angeles, including its employees and visitors to the City of Los Angeles. So I think slowing down the process does provide transparency in regard to that. And so we can look at it from a larger perspective. One of the things that was stated was that there will not be any impact on the employees as to whether or not there will be layoffs. But one of the things that was stated was short-term, there won't be any layoffs. So I am concerned regarding long-term layoffs, as the consolidation would merge employees with the same function in the department. So that's one of my concerns. And then, of course, the other one that was mentioned is morale in the department. And as a training officer, that's kind of a big issue with me as I meet with so many inspectors on a monthly basis. So anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I do appreciate you letting me speak here.
Great. Thank you very much. Our next and final three speakers are Julie Duncan, Richard Sanchez, and Adrian Buchanan.
Excuse me. You called me up and you called Mr. Wade.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yet neither have I.
Yeah. I'll say, go ahead. If you could state your name and go ahead and speak. I'm sorry.
My name is Jeff, by the way. I'm the
Yeah, got you.
training officer for the building codes, and I too meet with many of the inspectors, and I've also spoken with other members of the staff, and they have concerns. We've talked about the mission statement, and we talked about the different cultures in the different departments. The zoning has a discretionary type of role, and the Department of Building and Safety really has a codified ordinance enforcement. There can be modifications made to it, but for the most part, we don't have a discretionary role. We actually have a simple role. When we look at the list of different cities that are trying to do what we're talking about doing here, and I see Dallas as one of the biggest cities, and that's much smaller. I've been in Dallas. I grew up there. The building department is much smaller than the building department we have here, and the idea of the zoning is absolutely different as well. And so we're looking at mimicking smaller communities that have very small, in comparison with our building department, very minute members. And so we're really looking at apples and oranges in that regard. I look at this as trying to compare the police and the fire department. They're both first responders, but would we really think that we would want to meld these two together and to come up? I know that the council has been working on this for like 14 years, and we need to have some type of concrete place to go. But to first put a concrete place that we're going to go, and then put a very short time period on it. On the 15th of November, Mr. Wesson was still talking to the community about whether we should do it. And by May, we're saying we're going to do it, and we're going to do it by July, and then we push it off to January. Seems a little fast to me. I appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for giving me this time. I'm Julie Duncan. I'm a senior management analyst too with Building and Safety. I'm also an EAA steward. and I am one of the 250 realignable people that are going to be impacted by this consolidation. And I read today that since none of these changes are going to be grievable, so this is something that's impacting all of the 250 people. So once the changes are made, we're not going to have any say in the matter whatsoever. And I'm also familiar with the current study being conducted to determine how the consolidation can best be completed. However, where is the study that determined that this is the best move to make? I've never seen that. And also, I'd like to ask that this consolidation be reviewed and analyzed thoroughly prior to implementation, and that the new mayor and new council members have an opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you. Yes, you are Adrian Buchanan. Yes.
Yes, I'm Adrian Buchanan, and I'm a city worker in the Department of Building and Safety, and I'm also the secretary of ASME Local 3090. Now, January 1st is approaching fast, and it is extremely stressful to work not knowing how to answer questions to customers as well as amongst ourselves on how we will be able to serve them. Now, being that the functional transfer is not for saving money, but it is for streamlining services and providing greater accountability for our customers, then what's going to happen to the services and the jobs of the 250 employees performing this, similar duties in both departments? And also, what actually are the problems that this new department is supposed to fix? So thanks again. It is hard to give good customer service with no answers ourselves.
Great. Thank you. Richard Sanchez? Oh, I'm sorry. I mixed that up then. Mixed up the card. That's right. I'm sorry about that. Well, can I call the consultant up here again, please? What are the common themes we've heard from some of the speakers is that there was no determination or analysis as to whether consolidation was the right approach to move forward, considering what the problem is. And I could almost predict what your response is going to be, that that's the direction you have, correct?
There's been no direction from the CAO's office or the CLA's office that we cannot offer up our own perspectives on whether this is a solution in search of a problem or whether this solution is at least in part going to solve some of the problems the city experiences.
Okay. Now, if you have concerns about how either the planning department or the building and safety department functions in terms of its fulfilling its mission, and you said there are many examples of how we could fix those problems, and you say they both work in silos. In order for you to address the best recommendations possible, would you think it'd be best to have a complete white paper to find what you think is the best solution rather than work in a framework that consolidation is the best framework to work with under that? Or why not fix the problems amongst the silos? Why not fix the problems within the departments so that we have better communication, better integration, and resolve those inefficiencies within department? Would that be a solution?
I think it's hard to fix a problem that is end-to-end for the customer without addressing it holistically amongst all the departments at the same time. In other words, a customer is going to go through an entitlement or discretionary permit process. They're also going to go through a ministerial process. If you just focus on one part of it, like B permits, you're not going to fix the entire problem looking at it from a customer's perspective. So I think you really need to address this holistically end-to-end and address it holistically end-to-end. And if we've got issues, I think it's our responsibility as a consultant to bring those issues back to you, council, back to the CEO's office, back to the mayor's office, and identify what those issues are and how best to solve them. Some of that may be that we offer some perspectives about the organizational structure that's proposed on the table and talk about whether that's a best fit for the city of Los Angeles. But I will say again that organizational structure is one of the essential tools to provide responsive, effective customer service. That I think with what the city of Los Angeles has, it can be among the first-tier cities in this country in providing development review services. You're not there now. But you certainly have the capacity to be.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, let me say this. I appreciate that. And I will say this to you, that I am I don't know what the studies were, but I think it's a community consciousness that we're inefficient and that we're not customer friendly. I think that's just a general mindset that we have. I don't doubt that there's an abundance of studies that will show that.
Your processes are not customer friendly. Your staff are, by and large.
Right, so I was going in that direction. So let me say this with respect to the workforce. It seems to me that part of this change, which will be difficult, we heard the difficulties articulated. I heard you say that the goal is to make us more efficient
And more
customer
effective.
friendly.
And more effective.
Yeah, more efficient, more effective, customer friendly. And I'm big on the customer friendly because I think that aspect is key in terms of the way people walk away from an experience at a counter.
Agreed.
I think it's key. I think sometimes you can wait longer, but if people are polite, it's fine. On the other hand, you have a shorter time period, you have a bad experience, then it doesn't matter. That's why metrics and cultural change have to go together.
Agreed.
So what I heard here was, I heard you say that we are focused on friendly, efficient, effective. I like that. I heard you say that this is not designed, and I think the council feels the same way. I definitely do. This is not designed to engender layoffs.
That is not anything that's going to be in our report whatsoever, short-term, mid-term, long-term, any term.
I appreciate that because I want people, it's hard for people to hear that. People who work, who have mortgages, who have kids getting ready for college, who have invested and made a choice, class of 69, to go to the public sector instead of to go to the factory that was well-paying down the street or to go into new emerging industries in the 70s and 80s. People who took the safe route, right? They made those choices, and that's the choice they made. And I think what they hear is that that's in jeopardy. And so the more we can communicate that that's not the case, neither nor mission nor execution do we plan to do that, that then we can get probably a lot more cooperation.
We met with the Ask Me unit this morning, and one of the messages I put clearly on the table is that redundancies, rifts, layoffs, reductions, etc. is not on the table at any point in time. That I do not want to have that issue get in the way of making a good city better or a better city great. And I think that has to be the focus. And I don't want issues about layoffs to get in the way and cause unnecessary anxiety regarding change. I think we all have to be focused on how we can provide better service to our customers.
I appreciate that. I think it's important. That may be the one redundancy we may value, is to make that clear so that we can engender the full cooperation of the workforce.
There are going to be some resource issues that council will face in terms of whether we have adequate staff resources in certain areas to provide responsive customer service, but I recognize clearly that's a policy and resource decision that council and mayor's office have to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is scheduled to be, we have another status report coming to this committee in September, correct? Is that, that's what we have, right? We have another status report coming. Okay, so this is today a note and file item, and we will have another status report in this committee in September. Okay. We'll note and file this. Thank you very much. Any other items?
Public comment.
No public comments? All right. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
You can keep the brief.